Welcome back, guys. So the international break is over, and as FPL managers, you know what that means, right? We need to start setting out our teams. We need to start getting things in place to make sure our teams fulfill that standard that we want as managers. In my most recent video, I spoke about player performances, but in this video, we'll be looking at what the international break influences, how it influences our teams as FPL managers, looking at it or analyzing it from the Premier League manager's point of view. Welcome back to the Locker Room Vibes. This is the Inside FPL segment. Before we get into it, I would like you to kindly like, subscribe, and get interactive. Let's also know what your thoughts are, how you plan on going into Game Week 4. Alright, let's get into it. So as I've said, Game Week 4 has been, Game Week 3 was all sorts of exciting. Then the international break came. We had so many teams, so many players going out to play for their countries, and some players performed, others too were quite good. They put in a performance, nothing really to show for, but you still see the potential that they knew or they know what they are about. And we had players like Haaland performing in his very last match. We had players like Odegaard performing. We had Reece James still proving that he has it attacking wise and also defensively. We had Cucurella who was quite solid. We had Declan Rice also providing an assist or two. We are still looking out for Isak, who couldn't really perform, but it's normal because he's been out for a while, not with injuries because of his transfer issues. So all in all, we've had so many players. We had Salah for Egypt, we had Mamouche for Egypt as well, coming down to Kudus for Ghana, who gave an assist. And so we've had quite a few players here and there who have performed during this international break. And heading into Game Week 4, we have about 3 days, 2 days more maximum. And most managers have a whole lot to think about, because heading into Game Week 4, you should understand that right after Game Week 4, some teams are going to play the Champions League. We have some teams too that would be well rested for Game Week 5, after which we also have other cup games and other things coming up. So, and you should understand that already most teams have stocked up. Most teams have a good squad now to be able to rotate. Tottenham Hotspurs have been able to do that. We've seen City, they have the quality, they have the numbers. We've seen Chelsea, they have the numbers. Liverpool have also stocked up. Arsenal too have really stocked. So it's going to be very interesting how the managers implement all of this. Looking at players who played in Europe, it's not going to be so much stressful for them, because Europe to England is not going to be so much of a long journey. But you're going to have to consider players coming from Africa, like Kudus from Ghana and Salah from Egypt, the South American players. How long is going to take them to get back? The fatigue they are going to come with, because different conditions coming back, a very long journey. They are going to come in later than players who played in Europe, and all these things they play a role, because as a Premier League manager, you wouldn't want to go into the game week with fatigued players, but you'd also want to have that right motivation for your team. So here we'll just be looking at a few. So let's get into what the fixture difficulty rating, at least the optimum. Just look ahead 2 to 3 game weeks, see what it holds. We'll consider some teams in the Champions League, how things are looking for them, because for a team like Arsenal, they are going to play in the Champions League. So after Game Week 4, before Game Week 5, that week, in midweek, they will be playing in the Champions League, which means it's also going to affect them. You can have players performing all right, but they can't play all these matches and give 100. It's going to be here and there, so some players will have to be rotated. And here's the case that almost every team has that now. they have the squad depth, they have the key performers. So it's going to be quite difficult. A team like Liverpool, where we have Hugo Ekitike performing in the strike role, we have an established player at least for a season or two in Isak, who has also joined, who also proves who proves that he can do it. He's here to play. He's here to be put out there to see what he can also produce for this Liverpool team. But it's going to be a good case to see how they rotate them. So all in all, as I said, you would want to wait on the wild card, because it's going to be very early just to use it and to realize that the players that you bought are going to be rotated, because some of the managers feel it would be a good idea to relax the players now and start very well in the Champions League and continue in the week, because they just came from international break. So we'll get into it. We have a team like Arsenal where they had a good number of players going out. Hopefully, let's wait till Friday. Let's hear what the press conferences have for us. Those coming back from injury, whether they will be fit enough. If they are not able to make it, we expect other players to take in their place, and they should feature in the Champions League. And once that happens, it also brings a new dynamics. It means the other player is going to be rested, and coming into game week 5, who would be the best fit. So it's a whole lot of dynamics, but you just need to relax. It's nothing too difficult. Just give it time. Get to understand what the managers are thinking, because some managers are going to be quite diplomatic. They are going to go with their normal squads because they wouldn't want to see a dip. Others will start the normal squad, who would play for a good number of minutes, at least can get you your 60 minutes, which would be some 2 points. And if you are lucky within that period, you should get a goal or an assist. If the match ends with a clean sheet, that is a bonus as well. And it continues from there. Some managers like Pep too could be very stubborn and just going for the rotation. So all in all, that is what we'll be looking at. So Arsenal, for one, they are taking on a new side, let me put it that way, in Nottingham Forest, because they just appointed Nuno Espirito, and they sacked they just appointed Ange Postecoglou after sacking Nuno Espirito. Forgive me for that blunder. So they just appointed Postecoglou, who is going to come in with an attacking mind, and how we would want to see how this team will take on this Arsenal team that had so many players going out for the international break, who might probably be fatigued and who have had most of their players rested. Chris Wood was rested, other players were quite rested. At least they had lesser minutes, or they had more time to relax as compared to other players. Chris Wood played a match or two, but compared to some other players, he was quite rested. And we'll see how all of that will also affect the Arsenal team. So it's going to be very early going into it. Arteta, for one, doesn't. I am here to see how he's going to implement this team, because now he has a squad depth, which means he could easily rotate. But I'm here to see how he's going to get things done, because previously he wasn't really focused on so much of rotation. So we'll see how he'll go. But I believe, for one, you can still get Arsenal defenders, because they are going to be solid going into the game week, which is going to be a plus. So they are taking on Nottingham Forest. They play in the Champions League during the midweek. Then they come back to play City, after which they go face Newcastle. So it's going to be a very tricky time to have Arsenal players. You could get one or two, because even still, Arsenal are quite determined. So some key players like Declan Rice, who could easily give you an assist or provide a goal from a set piece. You could have a player in a defender from Arsenal, because defensively they are one of the top teams out there. Aston Villa, as I've said, they are yet to produce a goal, so you could be very patient with them to see how things go. Even though we had Cash from Aston Villa providing an assist, Morgan Rogers from Aston Villa also giving an assist, and we are hoping they're able to bring that and implement it into the team this game week and subsequent game weeks. So we'll also look at how that goes. So they are facing Everton, Sunderland, Fulham, which all in all are quite flexible matches. They could easily maneuver their way through, but they are yet to really prove themselves. So we want to be patient, but you could still go for a good player or a good differential in Morgan Rogers, which would be a plus. Bournemouth, who are facing Brighton, Hove Albion, Newcastle, and they take on Leeds. So these games are semi, then quite easy. So it's not going to be that easy for them, but at least you should expect some good performances. So it wouldn't be bad to have a Bournemouth goalkeeper in Petrovic, or have a striker or winger from Bournemouth, or better still, a midfielder to just get things interesting, or even a defender, because they have a good defense, not too solid, but at least very recognizable defense. Brentford are still getting things done. They take on Chelsea, after which they would face Fulham, then Manchester United. It could be tricky going across, because these are very structured matches, let me put it that way. So you'd want to be very cautious on your Brentford defenders. They could score a goal or two. So you could have a striker from Bournemouth, it would be a plus, but defender, I would strongly suggest you hold on. Brighton and Hove Albion, they take on Bournemouth, Tottenham Hotspur and Chelsea. So it's quite tricky, because the latter games are going to be very tough, but it could also be to their advantage, because the latter games are going to have extra games, which means they might come in with a little bit fatigued players, or with a different team. So it could go either way, but all in all, a much more structured team would be very difficult to face as usual. So you could also keep a winger or two in Mitoma and see how things go. Get a defensive midfielder just as a differential to see how things go. Burnley take on Liverpool, Nottingham and City. Very difficult matches. Very difficult matches. Liverpool, City, Nottingham Forest are yet to develop a new identity. So let's see how that goes. So you'd want to hold on Burnley players. So moving on, we have Chelsea, Brentford, Manchester United, Brighton and Hove Albion. Chelsea have proven they have the squad depth. The number of games are quite intense, but you would want, or you believe that Maresca would want to rotate a few players here and there, and they can easily get it done. So I would expect him to rest Reece James and play him in the Champions League, and have Gusto come in for this match and subsequently. So all in all, it's going to be very dicey when it comes to the team selection. You could have a few good selections, and Joao Pedro, you'd expect Enzo Fernandez to be in the mix thereabout, Estavo too to be somewhere there. So those are some players you can look at, and Pedro Neto for one too. He also provides a good differential as well. So that is Chelsea. Crystal Palace, you should definitely have 2 or 3 Crystal Palace players, at least 2. In Mateta, you have Munez, you have Ismail Assad, because most of them have been rested, and they would have, even though they'll be playing later on us, they should be able to get things done, because they are facing a Sunderland team, West Ham, Liverpool. So the first 2 matches, it could go either way, and it could go to their advantage. Against Liverpool would be quite tricky, but Oliver Glasner has showed that he's that manager who understands how to get the work done. Then Everton, we have Grealish. You could look at a few other players here and there. They are taking on an Aston Villa side that are still getting things figured out. Then they take on the Liverpool match. This Liverpool against Liverpool is always tricky, and here is a case that now they are a different team, so we'll hope for the best. Then West Ham United. So it's interesting. Fulham to have a good run, facing Leeds, Brentford and Aston Villa. Leeds United, Fulham, Wolves, Bournemouth. very interesting there as well. You could look at that, and of course, get Liverpool players because their next three matches are very good, taking on Burnley, Everton, and Crystal Palace. So you should definitely get a few Liverpool players. You could get Wirtz, you could get Salah, you could get for striking. I'm still trying to see how Arne Slot would rotate his players. So you could get the wingers and get, if you're confident enough, go for a striker. At least Ekitike would help. Isaac, I don't know how soon he would be featuring, so would want to hear during the press conference. City take on Manchester United, Arsenal, Burnley. First two matches very, very tricky, so you'd want to avoid City players for now. After they take on Arsenal, you could bring them back because facing a Burnley side, Brentford, Everton would be quite good for them. So this will be the time to invest in Liverpool players, invest a few in Chelsea, invest one or two in Fulham, and then some other players, and see how things go. Manchester United are taking on City, they take on Chelsea, and followed by Brentford. Very, very tricky matches, and they've proven themselves that against the bigger sides, they know how to play a very structured game. So you could get a match with fewer goals, very, very tactical match in these games, City Chelsea. And so I wouldn't really advise, for me now, hold on with the Manchester United players. But you could still go in for a Bruno Fernandes who could easily provide a penalty, a goal from a penalty, or an assist from a set piece. So he'll be a plus. Newcastle to take on Wolves, Bournemouth, Arsenal. So that's a good one as well. Nottingham Forest, new coach, new philosophy, different team dynamics. Let's see how things go. Sometimes it's a plus, sometimes it takes a while. But all in all, they also have a good run, and you should expect some good points. So you could have a winger or two from Nottingham Forest. Just focus on the attackers on Nottingham Forest, because I feel that's where Postecoglou is going to focus most on. Then Spurs, we have West Ham, Brighton, and Wolves. Very interesting there as well. We could easily have, all in all, you could have Van der Ven, you could have the wing backs, Pedro Porro, you could also have differentials in Bernard Johnson. I've spoken about him already. Kudus, Richarlison, Xavi Simons. I'm yet to see how they'll implement him, but you would have good selections from Spurs taking on this West Ham side, after which they face Brighton, Hove Albion, Wolves, Leeds, Aston Villa. So you should definitely invest in Liverpool, invest in Spurs, invest in City after their Arsenal match. Then we move on from there. So Sunderland take on Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, and Manchester United. So you can easily go for a Sunderland defender because they have the experienced players, Sami Xhaka, who would know how to play these games. And their defense have proven to be very stubborn as well, as they can also get the goals and put in some good performances as well. West Ham, for now, I think you should avoid most West Ham players. You could go in for Bowen, who can easily provide an assist from a set piece or create a chance. So you could have him for a differential. Then we end with Wolves. They take on Newcastle, Leeds, and Tottenham Hotspurs. Newcastle are also trying to get things done. I had Chan. He provided, I think he scored a goal in the last game week. Prior to those game weeks, I had him and he didn't really provide anything. But he's a good differential to have because he's low priced and he could easily provide the points for you as well. So teams you should be looking at heading into game week 4 as a FPL manager, with considering the thoughts of most managers, Thomas Frank would want to maintain that composure that he has. Slot will also want to maintain that composure that he has heading into the game week to get the team settled. So you could go for Spurs, you could go for Sunderland, you could, because most of them were rested at Sunderland, you could go for Spurs players. Try to avoid Kudus maybe for the first game week, but you could get him there because he's strong, he's fit, he can still get it there if even he plays 50 minutes, 60 minutes. You could get your assist before he's taken off. City for the first 2 game weeks, you should relax. You could get some other players from smaller teams like Everton, Fulham, Leeds. Crystal Palace definitely do go for players from there because they are going to really provide the goals for most managers. And Arsenal, you could wait till after the Newcastle match or City match to get Arsenal players. So all in all, with it's most managers are going to try to go in with a definitive mindset, hold what I have, go into it, just rotate a few players, and it's most of the rotation is going to be based on transfer. So you should look at players who can easily provide a goal and an assist before they are taken off, because most of them would be featuring in the Champions League games, and we should be good from there. So that is it. As an FPL manager, just know that most managers are going to be very conservative with their teams. Some are going to be very stubborn, which is a plus. Sometimes some are also going to be very diplomatic and would want to change things up. So as that's how it goes, we would continue from there. So look out for our next video, which is going to give you the post-match analysis based on press conferences and the best team to pick heading into game week 4, who you should have, who you shouldn't have, and if you decide to go for to play a wild card, what kind of team you can easily have. Before we end, kindly subscribe, like, and let's get interactive.